All right, if you've been through all of the director's commentary videos by now, you're probably sick of me talking about how much I love the 2000X version of He-Man and how it's my personal favorite. It's why, when I was doing classics, I pushed to get 2000X characters into the line so quickly, and my favorites at that. Chief Carnivus was a character that I wanted a toy of the moment I saw him in that first 2000X episode. And yeah, so it's again no wonder that when it came time to selecting a theme for a 2015 add-on sub wave thingy, well, 2000X was going to be the theme. It also sold really well. I mean, previous figures that were 2000X, they sold better than New Adventures. They sold better than Princess of Power. They sold better than the 30th anniversary wave. And there was a lot to select from. I mean, there were a lot of, there were updated Filmation characters, and there were original characters that were created just for the show. And one of them was Ceratus, or Ceratus, who was a Caligar, like Whiplash. He was, they're relations. And Whiplash was one of my favorite figures as a kid. This is not the vintage one. This is the Origins one. But yeah, I mean, Lizard Man. It doesn't get cooler than that. I mean, whether you're a Conan fan or Scalaris or, I mean, there's Lizard Men when Barbarian Fantasy goes back. It's a key part of Barbarian Fantasy is Lizard Men. And as far as 2000X was concerned, Whiplash was one of those figures that, well, let's say it snuck out with a 2000X head, a second head. They weren't supposed to get 2000X heads at this point in the line. It was kind of all about the executives who had worked on the 2000X show, and it didn't do well, and they didn't want that stuff out there. And then once they moved on, we then started incorporating more. But Whiplash was an early figure that did get a 2000X head. Now, doing Ceratus in the Club 2000X line was not about giving you a 2000X body for Whiplash. It obviously doesn't work, both color scheme, maybe I guess design-wise, but no, it's not a match. No, this was, he was a completely original character like Ricky Rouse or Ronald Ruck. No, I mean, it's the whole point of having species on Eternia, and I love having the dichotomy of a good guy and a bad guy in a species, and especially because Ceratus was a member of the Council, the New Eternia Council, that Randor was forming at the end of Season 2. And I was very conscious of this, and I love completing teams. That's very important, I think, well, for me as a brand manager and a collector. So I was deliberately trying to do this, because at the end of Season 2, or what was going to be Season 3, the Horde was going to come back after the Snake Men, defeat the Snake Men, and Randor's council was going to play a big part in this. And Miros was going to come back. It's actually in the mini-comics. The mini-comics were basically based on the notes for what was going to be the following season. So completing Randor's council as much as possible, I know we didn't get the Bee Queen. We did get Buzz Off. Very important to me, because it sort of represented the future of 2000X, but it was also harkening back to the Council of Elders that has been part of Masters of the Universe for a long time, but never really gets played up. So this new council was tied to that. So again, we didn't have content, but we had bios, and we had eventually mini comics. So we did address all of these plot threads specifically in these bios. And again, this was all based on the notes that Ian Richter gave me before he left Mattel of what was going to happen next in the 2000X show. Now, specific to the show and this character, so yes, he is the leader of the Caligars, the underground lizard men who live in Subternia. Their homeworld was also expanded on the map that was part of the Classics line. I was particularly proud of that because I love drawing underground maps. Big fan of Hollow Earth and the Edgar Rice Burroughs novels, etc., etc. So he was not Whiplash. He was not meant to be Whiplash. The whole idea, again, is that Eternia has species, and you don't just meet one of them. There's going to be others, and doing a good guy version of, there's Whiplash there on the right, of an iconic bad guy is cool. And the Horsemen, the details, again, that the Horsemen, get into these characters without it being off-model and not in style of classics, I just think is fantastic. They even, redid the tail because it had to have that, Ankylosaurus, hammer thingy knob at the end. But yeah, he did not just use Whiplash parts. I mean, he had new lower legs, new calves. I mean, lots of new tooling went into this figure. More than I think we originally anticipated. And I will say, it's Brandon Sapinski who put those earrings in. The Horseman just had, it was part of the sculpt. And I remember I saw the sculpt, but then when I saw the final figure, and I knew, I was like, oh, that was Brandon. And I called him up. He's like, oh, yeah, how'd you know that was me? I'm like, it's so you to do that. He was an awesome, awesome designer. So, yeah, shipped in the, as Pixel Dan would say, the usual brown Masters Universe box to the tan box. And as part of the 2000X add-on sub, which again, while I was a big fan, I wanted to, make figures, not just, this wasn't my personal wish list. These were figures that, we want to make sure the fans wanted the most. This was, I may have picked the theme, but the figures, we all talked back and forth about who would be the ones the fans would want the most. And I hope people were happy, because I think they all just, these 6 figures in particular, and those earrings, damn, Brandon Sapinski and the 4 Horsemen on that sculpt, just knocked this out of the park. So really glad we got more 2000X figures, because I don't think we're going to see a 2000X toy line anytime. This is just one of those things that kind of gets buried, especially with new media. And it was a very beloved line and beloved show. And I'm really glad Classics got to do so much of homages and characters from this show, because it deserved a bigger toy line than it got. And it was an awesome, awesome show. It did a great job of updating, Filmation characters, but also creating brand new ones in that same vein, and that same, it felt very authentic. So, Ceratus, in Masters of the Universe. Will you ever get another figure in any line? Only time will tell. But you've always got the Classics version.